Hello.
And good evening. This is the Tech Travel Geeks podcast for the week of, we're not sure, sometime in April. We've lost track of time. And I'm joined this evening again by Lukasz. Lukasz is back on the podcast with an amazing setup. Welcome back, Lukasz.
Hey, Matteo, good to be back. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. And joining us this evening is Peter Holden, co-editor at Talk Android. Good evening, Peter.
Hello, Matteo, Lukasz. How are you all doing? It's nice to be here.
Thank you. It's a bit of cabin fever, but apart from that, all is good.
Indeed.
So, we've invited you on to talk about phones. The last couple of podcasts have been mostly about alcohol. We started off with whiskey. Last week we did craft beer. I think we're moving on to gin next week. But let's fill in this week talking about something that we're actually quite passionate about. Phones. Specifically Chinese smartphones. And you're the one who's obviously co-editor at Talk Android. You have access to all the shiny devices. Ooh.
I do indeed.
Ooh.
Yep.
So he's holding a very strong hand of Chinese devices, which are not only shiny, one of them is pleathery.
It is lovely. Look at that.
Yes. So what is that device, Peter?
This would be the Oppo Find X2 Pro.
So wait a sec. That's the Oppo Find X2 Pro. Okay.
Yeah, it's the belated sequel to the Find X with the pop-up camera from 2018. And it's a really good phone. It's well worth the wait.
Good. And we'll talk about that in a bit more depth. Moving on to a bit less of an accessible device for Western markets.
Which phone would that be?
That would be I think the grey one you had there with the square camera module or squarer module.
Doot, 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 doot. Yes, indeed.
Oh.
And that's the lovely silver one.
Yeah, it is.
And that's the Huawei P40 Pro.
Yep. And we'll bring our face back.
And then last but not least, the OnePlus 8
Pro.
Okay, and they don't put a plus at the end of it because otherwise it would be OnePlus 8 Pro Plus.
And then we could call it the 10. I'm holding the 10 in my hand.
Very nice.
Do you have the Samsung as well? S20?
No, they don't like us.
No,
they give us nothing.
Yeah, Samsung's PR team have been quite moody in the last year or so. I don't know if this is a correlation or a causation with the drop in market share and the drop in mind share Samsung has. They've become a bit boring in some aspects, and their products are sometimes non-competitive with a lot of the brands that we've just seen Peter hold up. Shall we take the Band-Aid off first?
P40 Pro it is, I guess.
Yes. So I will say this. I am slightly biased. I do love Huawei. Literally, I am still using the Huawei P30 Pro from last year. It is such a good device for everyday use. The battery life, the screen, the cameras are still excellent. I love the P30 Pro. Lukasz, what are you using on a day-to-day basis?
still the P30 Pro as well.
Yeah, so we are biased. We really want the Huawei P40 Pro to be great, but we've heard there's an issue. Peter, walk us through this, or zoom us through this.
Well, basically, let's do the positives first. it is a fantastic phone. Great cameras. Again, another step above. Video is really improved over the P30 Pro. Great screen, nice waterfall design, powerful chip. With small issues in that if you like to do mobile banking, contactless payments, any sort of access to Google apps, it's a no-go, unfortunately.
So just to clarify, the Huawei P40 Pro does not have Google Play services. It doesn't have the Google Play Store. So in markets outside of China, and specifically in what are referred to as Western markets, this becomes a bit of a blocker. And I think it's worth clarifying. You can do mobile banking on that device. The issue is that you can't use the apps. So you can use the internet browser to do things, but you can't use the native apps, which most of the banks, for now, tend to distribute only through the Google Play Store.
Correct. Yeah, I've seen a few banking apps from South Africa on Huawei's app gallery, but none from the UK at the moment. It's very difficult. I've actually got two of them. One of them I've set up purely without any Google services at all. And the other one I've tried to Googleify a little. And the experience is a mixed bag. It's wanting. Yeah.
It seems that with Android 10, it does become a bit of a challenge getting Google Play services onto devices and getting them updated. It's a shame, but it depends. Some people don't like Google. They have been waiting for the Google-less phone. But that's sadly a minority of people at this point.
For sure. But it's people don't understand that it's not just Google apps. It's the framework around it, the GMS core. So even an app like WhatsApp, you struggle with notifications because it uses the Google's Firebase indexing. So notifications are a pain. Some apps you can install and they just don't work. They'll just come up saying, hey, there's a problem. Couldn't connect.
Firebase.
Try.
When they use Firebase, for example, for APIs in the backend, they won't work. They won't send you notifications.
No. Or it will be intermittent. You just can't rely on it for notifications. I'll put it that way.
Yes, to let our listeners know, Firebase is Google's magic engine in the background running in Google's cloud computers, which allow you to essentially, as an app developer, push and send notifications almost instantaneously. It's a magic and very inexpensive service from Google that enables all the app makers to do things. But if you've made your app for a Google-friendly phone, it doesn't work as well, if it ever works. So that's a big issue if you're, for example, a heavy WhatsApp user. Peter, so you said that obviously there's no Google magic on that phone, therefore most Western users will be impaired from doing their usual things. If you use the Huawei App Gallery, Huawei's competing app store, what apps are in there? What can we talk about that is there?
Well, naturally, all the Huawei and Honor apps. WeChat is there. There is a good amount of Microsoft and Amazon apps available as well. So Microsoft Office, Outlook, your phone, all those sort of things. Amazon app and App Store. You can also download the App Store from Amazon from their website. as a way to bypass the Google Play issue.
Wow, so that's a bit of a meta situation where you download an app store from the App Store.
Well, you have to go to the to Amazon to download the.
Oh, so you can't download the Amazon App Store from the Huawei App Store? No,
just the actual Amazon app.
Okay, right.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's fine. So you can install the Amazon App Store. Shout out to our friend Mario Viviani, who's still working on that at Amazon. Great service if you have a Huawei device or any imported Chinese device not made for Western markets that don't have those services. And if you install through the Amazon App Store things like Facebook Messenger, do those work?
Yeah. Facebook works. For some reason, Messenger doesn't work properly on my phone at the moment. I'm not sure if it's something I've done or just the version I've downloaded. But I haven't investigated it too much.
Okay. Just a list of other popular apps that are available in the Huawei App Gallery. They're obviously aiming at a certain type of user. TikTok, which is this young person short video app, which can sometimes be amusing, sometimes heartbreaking. And Snapchat, the other app for young people, though those young people tend to have snapticles and walk around and drink expensive coffee. Is Snapchat still a thing, Peter?
As someone who has only ever downloaded it, signed in, and then signed out and uninstalled it, I couldn't actually tell you, unfortunately.
Okay,
perhaps Lukasz.
Lukasz, you're a young one.
I wish. I'll be a lot on Sunday. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, so you don't use Snapchat?
No, I used it once as well and uninstalled it. I tried TikTok just to browse, but yeah, too much.
Maybe some of our audience in chat, Chris here, do you know if Snapchat is still a thing? From what I've heard is Snapchat is still quite lax with the type of content they allow on the platform, and a lot of porn stars are using it as an outflow since they had to move away from Instagram a little bit more. So it's a good way for, let's say, niche content to make its way to market in a more public manner.
So it's taken over from what used to go on Instagram.
Yes, and so the Huawei P40 Pro with these limited app availabilities at the moment has a bit of a challenge. Do you think that will be overcome at some point?
No.
Oh dear.
In an answer, no. Not because of Huawei's lack of desire, but on the US side, I don't think anything will change in the foreseeable future.
That's a shame.
But it does leave a nice little void for.
It does leave a nice void for Oppo to fill. Before we move on to that, let's talk about the cameras, because the P40 Pro cameras, even though it's not the P40 Pro Plus, are still very, very good. Still class leaders in the space of mobile photography, but more specifically computational mobile photography. Tell us what the cameras on the P40 Pro are like.
Well, they're a step above. This device received an update last week, which really improved the camera performance, improved focusing on macro, that sort of thing. It really is capable of better quality images than even the P30 Pro. There's a reason it's up there. Yesterday, I shot the hands-on video for the OnePlus 8 Pro entirely on the P40 Pro.
Oh, wow.
And that thumbnail that I sent you earlier on Facebook, that's a P40 Pro.
Wow.
Entirely done on P40 Pro. That's a really good phone. Just with one slight flaw.
That's a real shame because obviously at the Tech Travel Geeks we're really into our cameras and mobile photography. It makes the travel experience better. It's part of it being able to take a good picture whilst you're traveling. It's just a shame that the P40 Pro has certain limitations in terms of availability of software. Lukasz, you still use your P30 Pro.
Yeah, I've been waiting for an upgrade for a year now. I didn't go with the Mate 30 Pro. I didn't go with the Samsung because of the Exynos issues in the UK. So I was waiting for the P40 Pro, but banking, Facebook, and a few other things, I need them. So I decided to hold off. Which brings me to the Oppo, which is a phone that I'm really, really considering.
Sorry, just before we move over to the Oppo and stay on the Huawei, I've been using my drone a lot recently. Lukasz, you have a DJI drone as well. The good news is that all the DJI apps for the drones and for the Osmo Action camera that I have, all those are available in the Huawei App Store. So as a content creation device, that's not particularly an issue. And because the DJI apps interface with Facebook and Instagram via API directly, you don't have an issue uploading your content from the DJI apps. So as a content creator, the P40 Pro may still be a very valid device, but not as a main smartphone if you're using it to text your friends and family who aren't comfortable with some of the more esoteric apps. So good news there. That's one of the reasons I may actually be getting a P40 Pro or wait till June for the P40 Pro Plus, just for creating content. Peter, do you happen to know if the P40 Pro takes 4K 60 frame per second video?
I do indeed, because that's what I shot the unboxing on yesterday.
Very good.
It's actually got 4K 60 FPS, and it has 4K Cine, and that shoots in a 21:9 aspect ratio, which is apparently the format for widescreen.
Yeah, so that's like my GH5 that I'm using just now for this podcast. Yeah.
Very good. So the P40 Pro has its challenges, but for a certain niche, it still has availability through the Amazon App Store of some of the Facebook apps, and through the Huawei app gallery of things like DJI apps, and a more and more popular app these days called Telegram, something that those of us who are a bit geeky use quite a lot, but is still a bit of a niche product in of itself. So as you said, Peter, the Huawei P40 Pro's challenges are an opening or an opportunity, excuse the pun, for Oppo. So tell us more about Oppo, our friends from Shenzhen.
Well, you probably noticed the orange vegan leather finish, which is available only on the X2 Pro version. And it really does make it stand out. Reminds me quite a bit of the LG G4 from yesteryear.
The one with the real leather back.
Yeah. And obviously it reminds me a little of the Note 3 with the faux leather stitching.
But, the good old days. We're talking 2014, 2015 here.
Indeed, yeah. Camera-wise, I would say it's probably about on par with the P30 Pro.
Which is quite an accomplishment. It's quite a compliment there.
Yeah, it's Oppo's really made quite a step quite an improvement over the Reno 10 times zoom. You can see the work that they've put into this. Screen is lovely. It absolutely flies with 12 gig of RAM. And yeah, it's got 5G as well. Although I don't have a 5G SIM yet.
What is this 5G you speak of?
5G. I first came across it at a show in Barcelona. There was two friends of mine that made a song called 5G, 5G, and it was a hit.
Could the idea have been inspired by Five Guys?
I believe at some point there were 5 guys involved.
Seems to be a staple of the Barcelona diet for those of us who attend MWC.
Indeed, yes. Well, what else is there to eat? No?
Squids, chicken,
Octopus.
ham, more ham, some cheese, more ham.
We have not been to Castile for at least 2 years now.
Yes, El Castel, favourites haunt of ours in Barcelona. It's a shame.
Yep.
We will make sure this happens as if and when MWC happens again. It's hopefully going to happen next year, but too early to say at this point. But Oppo, who I believe last year did not have any stand at MWC, but they were guests of Qualcomm, their partner who make the chipsets in the Oppo Find X2. What chipset is in the Find X? You mentioned it has 12 gigabytes of RAM. Is it the fastest, snappiest Snapdragon?
It is indeed the 865 with 5G modem integrated, and it is really, really fast.
Good. And what's how does that compare, say, to the we compare the cameras to the P30 Pro. How does that compare to Huawei's chipset in the P30 Pro?
In the hand, it would be very difficult to notice. I certainly can't. The performance is at a level where 1 or 2% either way, you're just not going to see. Perhaps even 10%.
Yeah, unless you play like emulators with PS2 games or Nintendo 64 or something, you won't notice that.
Yeah. But perhaps you might notice the Oppo has 4 gig extra RAM over the P40. So maybe if you're using 100 Chrome tabs, you might notice a bit more difference.
That's me. I have 100.
So I like it where you just get the there's no number. It's just like
the smiley
yeah.
face.
And then everything stops working.
Does that work on mobile as well?
Mobile, I believe so, actually. Naturally,
Lukasz is trying to show something. Speak.
I don't know.
It's out of focus.
Anyway,
just so it does work on mobile. Good.
It counts up to 99, and then there's something else that appears afterwards, like an infinity symbol or something.
A red balloon? Okay, let's talk more about red flag Chinese smartphones. So the Oppo Find X2, amazing all-rounder, really good cameras on a par with the P30 Pro, if not slightly better, and Qualcomm's latest fastest chipset with a 5G modem. So, really good phone. What sort of price range does that come in at?
Funny you should ask. It comes in at £1,100, which is a shame because £100 less and it would be nailed on to be a favorite. But at £1,100, people who are used to buying Samsung will think, it's a lot to pay for a phone that isn't a Samsung if they're used to buying Samsung. It'll be too much money for them to take a chance on Oppo.
True. Then again, if seen in a store when stores reopen, let's bear in mind this product life cycle is probably 6 to 12 months. In the hand, how does it differentiate with a Samsung? What does the software feel like? What does ColorOS feel like? And does that vegan leather really stand out compared to a glass slab from Samsung?
Oh, let me tackle the last one first, actually. The vegan leather, at this point in the current market, it's one of a kind. Glass panels, ceramic panels are really common now. Orange vegan leather. There is a grey version as well, from what I hear, that isn't coming to the UK, sadly. But if I was going to buy a phone and wanted to stand out, I would choose this finish. I have forgotten the other points. I do apologize.
Okay, so the other point is the software. How does it feel to use with ColorOS? Obviously, ColorOS is Oppo's Android distribution. It's their take on how Android is. I quite enjoy ColorOS 6.1 on the Oppo Reno 2. How does it? What's ColorOS 7 like on the Find X2?
7.1 actually this has. Basically, it's lighter. Things are a bit more organized. The all-important dark theme is present. There's some nifty features like being able to customize your icons on the home screen, make them round, smaller, bigger, the whole thing. You don't have to download a third-party pack anywhere, although you can. You can even customize things like status bar icons, that sort of thing as well. I would say it's on par with EMUI 10. It's the leap between 6 and 7.1 is huge. You can see that they've spent a lot of time finessing and polishing it up. After all the criticisms they received last year in reviews about it being a bit clunky and garish, perhaps, it's a huge improvement. Huge.
Didn't you say on Twitter that it's your favorite Android OS now?
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm happy with it. I'll put it that way. I can only say I'm happy with it. I'm not using it thinking, oh, I wish it had this, or I wish it had that, which ColorOS 6 I did. I was always complaining, oh, I wish it had a dark mode. I wish this. Where is this in the settings? Yeah. But it's a bit more organized and definitely more polished now. If you're used to using EMUI 10, ColorOS 7.1 is just as good.
Awesome, and that's high praise. I personally quite enjoy MUI 10 on my P30 Pro. So if it has dark modes and it's usable, if it's an improvement on ColorOS 6.1, it's definitely something I'd be interested in using on a day-to-day basis. So we've gone from the colourful. Let's go to a distant cousin of Oppo's from the same stable.
Yep.
What's that, Peter?
This would be the OnePlus 8 Pro. Again, 12 gig of RAM. Again, Snapdragon 865. 4 cameras. This has the new 30-watt wireless charging for the first time on a OnePlus phone, which is quite fast, I believe. Again, I've only had it a day, so it's hard to form an opinion straight off, but it's really quick.
So your first impressions when unboxing it?
felt like a really good phone, but I was not as excited unboxing it as I was with the Oppo.
That's interesting.
Nice.
It's a nice finish, but it's just another glass panel.
Is it the blue one that's it's called green?
Yeah, glacial green. It is really nice, but
Not green.
it does look a little blue.
Yep. Oh well.
Yep.
So they seem to have taken a page out of Honor's playbook, where they had Phantom Black, which was actually purple.
Yes, indeed.
That was a really good phone, but sadly the last Honor flagship to have Google Play services. What's the OS like on the OnePlus 8 Pro?
Again, since the release of Oxygen OS 10, there's been a huge improvement. It's slicker. It's not as... One of my old complaints about OnePlus software was that it was a bit bland. Yeah, it did the job, but there were no niceties, no features like adjusting icons or room for customization sometimes. But this has a ton of options. If you want to make the phone your own, it's there. You can do it. There's no excuse for having a home screen looking exactly like the guy next to you. I'll put it that way.
Oh, sorry. Rookie mistake, I'd muted myself. So that's good. And obviously, nice shiny device, fast, lots of RAM, Qualcomm chipset, and it has Google Play services. So another flagship phone. Is this a flagship killer, or has it moved into the same demographic that it was OnePlus used to be trying to kill?
So basically, you're asking me if it's a sellout.
No, I'm definitely not saying that. OnePlus's mantra as a plucky little startup, which I visited in Shenzhen in 2015, was to have the flagship killer. Obviously, some compromises were made along the way, but it did very, very well.
I don't know if you can see.
Ooh.
Never settle.
Oh, so they still use the never settle, not flagship killer. Okay.
No.
What's the pricing of that for the UK?
£899 for the OnePlus 8 Pro with 12 gig of RAM, 256 gig of storage.
Wow.
Which is a little bit. But would you... It will sell a lot more than the Oppo Find X2 Pro.
Because it's an established brand as well.
Yeah, and the price. It's still accessible. It's under £1,000. It's below that psychological barrier,
Yeah.
But the one to buy is the regular OnePlus 8, because that still offers the best value for money.
And how does that differ from the OnePlus 8 Pro?
No wireless charging, unfortunately. And
Waterproofing either?
no waterproofing. And I believe a slightly lower resolution display. But there's £300 difference between.
Okay,
so it's quite a lot.
So Full HD Plus on the OnePlus 8 standard model, which is more than enough for most users. And then the OnePlus 8 Pro is the new capital Q in QHD, Quad HD resolution.
Correct, yeah.
And it has a very fast refresh rate. Do you notice a difference there?
I haven't played around with it too much on the OnePlus, unfortunately. But on the Oppo, which is a very similar screen with 120 hertz refresh rate, you can notice the difference, especially if you've upped the resolution to QHD plus. It seems more noticeable, along with the 240 hertz touch sampling, which is great for gaming. For some people, I still die.
Yeah, those passionate mobile gamers, they're good.
Yes.
And that extra refresh rate on the screen makes the kill easier.
Apparently so. Those replays of me dying, they look so much better.
Interesting. And do you think it was a flagship killer who decided to kill you that way?
I don't think I went anywhere near a flagship killer in the games.
Good.
I think someone sent out a Nokia 1.2 to get me.
Oh dear. Still quite a sturdy device, but definitely not something you'd call a flagship. Speaking of that, that's going to be one of our next unboxings on the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel, the Nokia 1.3, which is now available in the UK for all of £59.99.
That is a crazy price.
It's a crazy price with a crazy chipset. You talk Snapdragon 865 Kirin 990 with artificial intelligent chips. I'm talking a repurposed watch chipset.
Would that be the Snapdragon 230?
It's the 215.
215! Oh, goodness.
But if you're, say, traveling to somewhere that doesn't support the networks that you have, for example, you're a US visitor visiting the UK, it might be cheaper to pick up a local phone that comes with a SIM card and some credit than it would be to get an appropriate roaming plan for your horrendously expensive American phone. So this, in the context of travel, makes sense. Some people do actually live with these phones. I've forced myself to do that for the last week. I've been using the Nokia 2.2. It's not all that bad. It runs Google Play services. It's an Android 1 device. Still running on Android 9, but they're still perfectly usable phones. And I believe they cost the same as the wireless charger for that OnePlus.
£70, I believe it is.
Oh, so you have money for extra credit, a couple of extra months of service. So tell us about the charger.
I don't actually have one, unfortunately.
Oh, okay then. So we'll
They
need to find
didn't actually send one. Yes.
But I hear the OnePlus fan, I think our friend, our traditional journalist friend, Andy Boxall, can confirm this. The stand has a fan because that 30-watt wireless charging does create some heat that needs to be dissipated.
It does. But you can actually, for those that are worried about the fan keeping them awake at night, you can actually, there's an option in the software to lower the charging rate and thus disable the fan.
Okay, that makes sense. Especially if you're charging overnight, you may not want that quick charge, really.
Or to hear the fan.
True.
Yeah.
For a moment there, I thought you were saying that the OnePlus 8 Pro charging on a wireless stand was going to keep you up at night because you're afraid it was going to come and kill you, but...
No, it's not a Note 7.
That's more than just Firebase there. But yes, that Note 7, may it rest in peace in many repurposed and reused parts.
Indeed. I always wanted one of the refurbished versions, the FE.
The ones that were only available in Korea.
Correct. Yes.
And it was a fantastic device.
It set Samsung back many years, actually, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, we were at a few trade shows, Peter, sitting side by side with the English chief marketing officer from Samsung on stage, essentially saying, sorry, here's a new product, here's a new washing machine, sorry, here's a new phone, forget about our old flaming phone, sorry. That was the mantra for about at least 18 months since the end of the passing of the Note 7.
Correct, yeah. That would be definitely the Tab 3 launch in Barcelona and the Galaxy S8 launch, and then the Note 8 launch as well.
Interesting thing about that Tab 3 launch we were at in Barcelona, the one in the university campus that we were at, that I think is one of the few tech conferences which had a moment where the Bechdel test was passed. There was a couple of ladies, one designer and one UX developer, who were talking about the experience. And as far as I'm aware, it was one of the few tech product launches that passed the Bechdel test in one of its segments.
Oh, wow.
But
sure.
yeah, that was the one where Samsung very kindly didn't give us a tablet, but gave us a Staedtler stylus for it.
And 2 pencils. Yes. Which I still have.
I still do as well. They're here somewhere.
Brand new.
Yes.
Never used.
I think the only good takeaway from that press conference was going to Testan for dinner afterwards.
Yes, steak and chips was very nice at that point, especially after the long walk we took to get there.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's Col Blanc is the part of town Lukasz and I stay in Barcelona when possible. That's restaurant Testan does some very good food, whether it's squids, octopus, steak, chicken. They do some very good stuff. And I had the pleasure of being introduced to the venue by David Lowe. It was a fun MWC in 2015, but since then, Col Blanc seems to be the favourite location.
Yeah, we missed it this year.
Yeah, it's a shame. Though we did have the advantage of everyone mass cancelling their MWC reservations. And Lukasz, you and I were very lucky to get a lovely 4, almost 5-star hotel in the same block as our office. So very short commute to the office.
Yeah.
Wow.
For a very affordable price as well.
Indeed.
Wow.
So coming back to the phones, I'm a generation behind. I'm on the P30 Pro. Which one would you choose if you had to upgrade, if you wanted to upgrade?
It's difficult because the P30 Pro is still such a great phone. Honestly, I would stay with it for now.
Would you?
Yeah. If you're coming from a P10, P20 maybe, or Galaxy S8, yeah, go for the, on price, go for the OnePlus 8 Pro, or one of the different versions. But if you have a P30 Pro, stick with it. It's still the third best camera on a smartphone, third or fourth. Yeah.
That's what I've been thinking, especially now that I don't have, any travel planned for the next however long. I'm not going to be taking any photos other than just at home. So the only improvement is the speed and the refresh rate on the phone. So
is it worth £600 or £700?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that you have to put in over selling the P30 Pro.
Yeah,
it's just not.
Yeah, and the P30 Pro is still a fantastic device. I'm still in the position where if someone's buying a phone especially with the deals you get on it at the moment. It's between £500 and £600, depending on where you purchase it from. The P30 Pro is still a fantastic smartphone, and it doesn't go through the teething process of any of the new smartphones of needing software updates or optimizations that happen. It's still, in my view, much better device than, say, the Google Pixel 4 XL, which was released 6 months later and at a similar price. So, sorry,
and
Lukasz.
terrible battery life.
Well, yes, that's true. But at this point, the Pixel 4 XL has improved in terms of battery life and reliability. My biggest gripe with the Pixel 4 XL is the lack of a wide-angle lens. It is frustrating to be there and have really good night shot camera, but not be able to get the skyline of Singapore when you've managed to sneak into the Marina Bay Sands rooftop, which for me was heartbreaking. But luckily I had the P30 Pro, which, even on the wide-angle lens, did a great job in nighttime photography.
Yeah, so Chris on the chat is recommending the Realme X50 Pro, which also is 5G phone and with a Qualcomm 865, but much cheaper. Have either of you used this one?
No, it's definitely flagship specification, but I think Realme is also BKK. If I'm correct.
Same group. Vivo, Oppo, Realme, and OnePlus.
Mm-hmm.
Realme is the budget brand.
It's the equivalent of Redmi or Pocophone. So it's a brand that the group created specifically to target the Indian market, and they start from very affordable phones competing with the Nokia 2.3 or 3 series upwards. So they have the full spread. But the Realme is moving into the sort of aspirational category with the X50 Pro, which Chris has tried out. So if you do get a chance, check out Chris Hare's website. I will drop a link in the description to this video on YouTube.
technewscentry.co.uk.
Yeah, as we'll also be linking to Peter Holden's content from the 3 devices he's talked about and Talk Android, which is a great source of information about everything Android and Android related.
Thanks.
So, Peter, you write for a website called Talk Android. You edit it. What are your thoughts on the iPhone SE?
Well, okay, I have to admit here, I was too busy. I was busy working this afternoon, and I basically seen 2 tweets about it. It's going to be a killer phone. People are going to buy it in the thousands. What's not to like? Apple's best chip, great cameras, a design that people know and trust. It looks like the iPhone 8, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, you've got those bezels at the top and bottom that people might complain about. But people who are comfortable with iPhone 8 or coming from a much older phone, they're going to love it, especially that price.
And also people wanting a smaller device, which is nowadays a rarity. Even the iPhone 11, which is the sort of entry-level iPhone up to this point, is still a chunky device. I'm using one now with a shiny case from Clicker. But it's still a big device. It feels wider than my P30 Pro. But it's a big phone, and there is a gap in the market for people who are looking for a smaller one.
Definitely. All those people with the first version of the SE, they'll be upgrading like crazy.
Yes, it's
Finally,
not
there's
too
a
big
phone
for them.
Yeah.
And
also, no, go on.
Oh, sorry, no, you were saying?
It's going to affect the upcoming Pixel 4a's sales as well.
So it's in that price range at $399 or £399 for the entry level 64GB iPhone SE, which is right in the price range for the rumored Pixel 4a, which we haven't officially heard of yet, but we expect, given the relative success of the Pixel 3a and 3a XL last year.
Yeah, they've dropped the XL model according to the rumors this year. But,
and is that, do you think, to satisfy that need for a smaller phone?
that and perhaps poor sales. I believe the regular 3A was the top selling phone on Amazon for quite a while after it launched last year. The XL, not so much.
Yeah. I personally like the idea of a smaller but powerful enough smartphone. In a way, I fell in love with them with the Xiaomi A2 Lite, not the full A2, which we reviewed on the Tech Travel Geeks, but the smaller one. I like it so much, I still have it in my pocket quite often. It's different from the iPhone SE in that it has a 18:9 aspect ratio screen with a notch. It's a bit iPhone X like, but it has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery. It's fast enough for all the messaging, social media, light gaming needs that I have, and I've now become even more attached to it since the P30 Pro launch last year. Peter, you're in Paris with us. Do you remember going and seeing the smashed up streets of the Champs-Élysées?
For the P30 Pro?
Yes, after the Paris riots.
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there with you in the same
Oh yes,
group,
you were with the other
unfortunately.
journalists group.
Yeah, we missed out there.
Yes, you were with our traditional journalist friend Andy Boxall and the American contingent.
Indeed.
But yes, we visited the Xiaomi store on the Champs-Élysées, and one of the services they were offering was laser engraving on any Xiaomi product if it wasn't made of glass. So I had my Xiaomi Mi A2 Lite, the one running Google's software experience in the nice little size, and I had it engraved with this. It's still a really good little device, and it has had the Android 10 update. So it's had 2 major OS updates, and it still gets monthly security updates. This, whilst I'm at home, is surprisingly still a good device. So is there really a need to upgrade every 6 months? Maybe not. And small phones, let's give a shout out to small phones. As Clapton teaches us, it's in the way that you use it.
Indeed.
So the new iPhone is actually something I've been considering, because I need to admit I've never had an iPhone in my life. I moved from Nokia, from the, what was the OS?
Symbian?
Symbian, yep. I moved to Android, and I skipped iPhones. So the 400, it's actually £419, as Chris noticed in the chat, because of the taxes and the exchange rates. 419 for an iPhone, which has the latest chipset and a good a single camera, but still a good camera, is something I might consider, especially that it's smaller and can fit into the pocket more easily.
Yeah, so Lukasz, you would be using this for content creation. One of the great things of that A13 chip is that it's capable of recording video at 4K 60 frames per second. Would you probably go for the 128GB model just to ensure you have storage? Because 4K at 60 frames per second does take up quite a lot of space.
Yeah, it does not go up. Is the normal version 64?
The normal version, the entry level one is 64.
Okay.
So realistically, a 10-minute video, you're looking at 10 gigabytes. It's a gigabyte a minute, more or less, at 4K 60.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So that goes up to how much do we know?
469, I think.
It's not bad.
It's not
Yeah.
bad for the 128 gigabyte model. I'm lucky that I can live. I have good connectivity whether I'm out and about or at home. The iPhone with 64 gigabyte storage is perfectly usable as long as you remember to use Google Photos to back up as much as possible and free up that space very, very frequently. Today, I just handed Candice the phone because she was desperate to take a quick video, and it was a really good quick video, point and shoot of my cats on the bed cleaning each other. It worked. So it's one of those things is you can have all these amazing specs and really thought out software experiences. Ultimately, it's about point and shoot and using it in the context that you're in. The iPhone SE may be the real winner of 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Peter, one thing I'm missing, if it's about upgrades, is the video. So P30 is 4K 30. It's not really great. So I don't have a good. Well, I have the S9 Plus, which I barely use, which has 4K 60, but it's not
Great, is it?
No, it wasn't. So that's one thing I would that would improve if I went to Oppo or even the iPhone, probably.
Yeah, it does make a difference.
Especially I use 4K 16 not for for high refresh, but for slow motion. So when I do panning shots, when I do product shots, I film always in 4K 60 and then slow it down to 24, which is 40%. So you have this cinematic, slow moving, fluid movement, which I can't do on my P30 Pro.
No, definitely not.
Lots of thinking from me. No rush though. So we'll see.
So Peter, so far between the OnePlus 8 Pro, Oppo Find X2, and the Huawei P40 Pro, which takes the most important cat pictures? Let's face it, we're just here to fill the internet with cat pictures. That's our purpose in life.
It would have to be the P40 Pro. It is an amazing phone. Amazing cameras. It's top of the tree for a reason. But saying that, I've taken some really good ones with the Oppo. But sometimes it's not quite as easy as with the P40 Pro. You have to work at it a little.
So for a second phone, if you have a second phone for your Google stuff, the P40 Pro is the best for content creation, basically.
Yes, so long as you don't plan on uploading to Google at any point. Yeah, and also sometimes it's difficult moving content off it.
Yeah.
It has Huawei Share, which is fantastic. But if I'm not actually using my Huawei MateBook, and I'm using the 17-inch Dell instead, that means I've got to grab a cable out to move content because, Bluetooth is terrible.
Oh yeah.
I'm oddly tempted to get a P40 Pro just for content creation. I've just checked the Huawei app gallery and found out the Box, the Dropbox or Google Drive competitor, is available. Box is an amazing cloud storage service, which I use and many others do. And it's very good for media like pictures and videos. Lukasz, you and I share, during the content creation process, share video clips using Box. It's perfectly functional. And with the DJI apps, with a really good camera and Box, I've got everything I need to do content creation with a smartphone with the P40 Pro. So still
That's
early
the thing.
days. I will wait a few weeks and hear a bit more in-depth reviews of the OnePlus 8 Pro from Talk Android and others to make an informed consumer decision. But smartphone upgrade season is on. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, the P40 Pro, it's not dead on arrival. It just means that you have to work at it a little bit more to make it do the things you're used to doing on other phones. If you don't mind spending a bit of time finding apps like Box and Telegram, that sort of thing, then you can make it work for you. And the cameras are superb.
So there you have it. The Huawei P40 Pro is the metaphor for a life partner. You need to work a bit harder to get it to work for you and to work with it. But once you do, it might be worth it.
Indeed.
On that deep philosophical note, I think it's time to wrap up. We've been going for just over an hour. Peter Holden of Talk Android, thank you for joining us again.
Pleasure to be here, finally.
Yes,
After many years of threatening to do so.
Yes, I don't know how many Pokemon walks I threatened you with to make this happen, but it happened. Thank you for joining us. I will drop all the links to your content that we've just discussed in the show notes, as well as our links to Chris Hare's content on his website. Another victim of Pokemon Go walks, Lukasz, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast.
That could be anyone in your life, to be honest.
Yes. And as many victims, I am one myself. Ultimately, it's Candice who's really beating me at Pokemon Go. So, shout out to my other life partner, not Android related. I think it's time to wrap up this episode of the Tech Travel Geeks podcast. This episode is going to be only on YouTube. We'll get back to our regular schedule of episodes and audio versions releases soon, once we've figured out what our Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify account credentials are. But for now, thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye from the Tech Travel Geeks.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Bye.